panel. Today, this is really informal. We have some questions up here, pre-written, so we can keep the conversation going. And then also, we're going to be taking questions from you guys, as you guys want to ask this panel here any questions with creating software products in the WordPress ecosystem and so on. So we'll just let everybody introduce themselves. My name is Justin Fairman. I'm co-founder of LearnDash, which is a premium WordPress learning management system plugin. And we'll just go down the line here.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm the lead developer for Google Analytics by Monster Insights, and I work at Automotive, where we make like WP Beginner and OptiMonster and a bunch of other WordPress products.
My name is Corey Miller, and I'm the founder of iThemes, and we do primarily plugins, backups, security, maintenance, management tools for this thing called WordPress.
My name is Rebecca Gill, and I'm the founder of Web Savvy Marketing, which is a local agency that does custom development for and design for WordPress, obviously. We also sell stock WordPress themes, and we have an online SEO course at DIYcourses.com.
My name is Adam Warner. I am the co-founder of Food Plugins. We make plugins. And I also work for SiteLock. We do cloud-based website security.
All right, very good. So I have some questions here. We're going to start off with these, but we'll also take a moment to ask, you guys take a moment to ask a question and get some answers from the panel. We'll start off with what I think is a good one to start with 1.0 launch. So you have your idea, you're ready to release your product. How important is that 1.0 launch, and what have you done to make it more successful as you're preparing for the launch? And we can start, we'll start off going in a line again, and then we'll switch it.
That works. So the 1.0 launch is huge because it sets an expectation for new customers as to what your future releases will be. So like things like a lot of one of the easy mistakes that you can make is as a developer you get into a thing where you build like a settings panel or something, but the design is like sort of off, where there's like a lot of little like CSS issues. So like solving that type of stuff before you launch your 1.0 is like huge, because if a customer comes to you and they're brand new and they're using your software and little things are like off like that, like they're going to wonder what the rest of your plugin is going to be like, and is it really going to be the quality of WordPress plugin that you want on your site.
So the question was about perfect or...
How important is the 1.0 launch, and what have you done to make it more successful?
Yeah, I think the build-up probably to the launch is critically important for the success of it. Just like Chris was saying, I ditto with his comments, but we have not done as good of a job of the build-up before, so that customers at least, or prospective customers at least have some kind of understanding of what the product is, what it solves for you. So we did that with Exchange, which is our e-commerce plugin. We had some probably 3 or 4 months of build-up of it, and that helped the launch become a lot better. Just so people, awareness, touches for the product before it comes out is pretty critical, I think.
Okay, so I think the ramp up to 1.0 is important, but for me what's more important is how you react right after you launch. Because you're going to make mistakes, you're going to forget stuff, you're going to not have anticipated everything that someone's going to do, the questions that they have, the way that they're going to interpret something, and that immediate feedback that you have from the first launch and those first customers is critical. And more important is how fast you react to fixing all those issues and improving your product or your process or your documentation based on that feedback. It's made us, instead of breaking us, with that ability to react quickly.
Well, you've said it all, everybody. No, I agree with everyone here, but I believe something I can add is the marketing aspect of launching a 1.0. We had been in the plugin business. We've had plugins in the repo, free stuff, but no one knew the name Food Plugins. So when we launched, we had a product we've been selling for 8 months, but no one knew about it, except for the people who bought it, of course. So when we launched our official 1.0, we launched at a WordCamp. We sponsored at the highest level we could afford. We got t-shirts made. We did a lot of handshaking and talking about our products. So in terms of how important is the 1.0 launch, for us, when we originally launched it, we launched it kind of as a test to see if people would be interested in the plugin that we were selling. And once we were convinced, then we did more of an official kind of a branding launch. So I agree, but for us, the 1.0 initial was a little bit faster than normal.
Yeah, and it sounds like from all the answers up here, the 1.0 launch, there's kind of 3 phases to that. There was the build up to it, and the actual building the product, but also getting the word out. Then the actual launch, and then as Rebecca alluded to, kind of that post 1.0 launch, and when a fire happens, and there might be one, usually there is something that goes wrong, how you react to it, and then how you communicate any of those issues. I know in the context of LearnDash, we did a lot of blogging before we even had a product made. And the purpose of that was to get an email list, so when we did release, we had somebody to tell. So you don't have to do blogging, any kind of content marketing or hitting boots to the ground at the meetups and WordCamps with a shirt, just start speaking about what it is you're doing. You'll find that people are getting interested, give them an opportunity to sign up for more information. And then I guess the only other thing I would add for a 1.0 release is it's really tempting to try to hit every use case for your product. Like, and trying to think of every different angle. And the more important thing is to get it into people's hands, because they're going to come up with better ideas anyway, because they're using it in a practical installation, whereas you're thinking it in like kind of a hypothetical format. So that's what I would add to that. Sticking with the 1.0 release, I think this is kind of related, and we'll also elicit some questions from you guys. But how did you come up with the pricing? So, you want to get it out there, you want to market it. Now you got to put a price tag on it, and you're not entirely sure, what the best price is. You don't want to be too low, but you don't want it to be too high. Interested to hear your thoughts on how you came up with a pricing model for your plugins. Rebecca, you want to start?
Okay. So we have 2 different types of products. We have stock WordPress themes, and then we've got the SEO courses that we do. In both instances, I did a lot of research on the internet to see who my competitors were, what type of pricing that they had, and how good were their products. Am I going to produce something better? If I am, I can raise the rates. Is it really oversaturated? Are there a few players? So with the themes, I know people told me at first and recently that they were priced too high, but they're not. And I've raised it. We started selling at like $59.95. I raised it, now I'm up to, I think, $95. And it really has not changed the conversions because it's a quality product and it's staying in line with the marketplace. With my SEO course, we priced that at $2.99, and that was based on what the other courses were in the industry and the level of quality that they had versus what we were going to provide. And again, I've not had anyone complain. I will tell you though, I have changed pricing. When I first launched the course, I moved it up to $3.99 to see if we could get away with it, and we couldn't. Stale stop. It was just people had some type of threshold where they were tolerating. As soon as I passed by that threshold, the sales dried up, and I brought it right back down, and things started selling again. So in that type of environment, that's how we set it, and we modified it quickly again to try to make sure that we were converting.
Just to echo what Rebecca was talking about, when we first launched it, it's a plugin called Foodbox. When we first launched it, my co-founder and I met on a Gravity Forms forum. He had plugins. I'm not a developer. I'm a handshaker, marketer guy, and he agreed to partner with me to sell this Lightbox plugin. And because I was in the marketing world, I was on a site called Warrior Forum, which is an internet marketing forum, which is both good and bad. So we used that as an experiment to have a proof of concept to see if anybody really needed an advanced Lightbox pop-up solution. So because of that, prices are typically pretty low on those forums. So we started at $9, and it's 4.5 years later, and we've changed our prices probably 4 or 5 times, trying to find the sweet spot for that particular product and that particular need. Because if you look at it, you don't really need a Lightbox. It's a nice to have. It's a value add, and especially a standalone one when other gallery plugins already have that function built in. So I don't know if that adds to the question, but we're always changing our prices and measuring conversion rates to try and figure out what's best at that certain time.
So the other comment I would add to this is like, my story would be Backup Buddy when we first were building Backup Buddy back 6 years now. We were at a workshop and we were talking to some people and telling them what we were doing. And he goes, the guy I was talking to at the time goes, I'm paying somebody right now, whatever it was, $50 an hour, and it takes them like 4 hours to do what Backup Buddy was going to do one thing. I thought, okay, well we can charge that. The importance of the story I think is how do we save people time, money, effort, make them look better, and that's that return on investment. That's everything. Like this is one side of it, and the other that we bounce it off of is what is it doing that helps that person that buys it help make their lives better.
Yeah, and I would also add to Corey's is that, when you're looking at pricing, you also have to consider, what value does your plugin really bring to these people. So if you're launching, let's say, like an e-commerce product, if they're going to be earning a lot more money than, say, like, I don't know, like a gallery or like a slider plugin, you have to take that into account. So, like, yeah, I would say that for most products, you have to take a look at, like, basically three things. Your competitors, you have to take a look at the value that you're adding to the customers who are using it, and then you also have to take into account if you have other products, like what the results of those other products are at different pricing points.
I'm just going to do a quick follow-up question to this question, because we're just talking about 1.0 releases. When you guys released your first version, did you have a special pricing for like that launch or that release? I know we did. We had like a contest, and the price was at a lower rate than what we ultimately sold for the idea of getting people to start using it and getting feedback. But curious if what your stories have been in that area.
For that $9 release on the Warrior Forum, that was our special pricing because that was kind of the going rate at that point. When we launched the brand officially at the WordCamp, we were giving out discount codes. So we had 20% off. That was a word. In fact, if you want 20% off, WordCampers still works. Or food campers, I think it is. Anyway,
on all of our products.
Yeah. So for us, it was there was some incentive by just having a low price, having a large number of domains for that low price, and then giving a discount in the second round.
Anyone else running? No. Yes.
I have a question. So, when we talk about price, we see more and more, those yearly renewals, right? And so, when you do a price change, how do you manage the impact that it has on your existing customers?
I'll repeat that question. So, a lot of times in the WordPress ecosystem, we see renewal. If you want to continue using the plugin or getting support and updates, you pay for another year. And if you're changing prices, how does that impact the people that maybe purchased at one point, and then maybe a year later that price is different? Say your renewal price is 50% of what the purchase price is, and then you raise prices. How does that is that something that you communicate with customers, or is it something that you think is just that's the cost of doing business, and prices go up usually over time? How do you manage that delicate relationship?
So we just did this actually with one of our products, which is Opt-in Monster. We had to spend a lot of time thinking about how we were going to do this. So in our case, what had happened was we had built a product, we had priced it at a particular set of price points, and then over the last year we added a ton of functionality that exceeds in a lot of areas most of our competitors. So then a year goes by and we want to raise the prices. So the key to this is really communication. You have to, it's not just communicating to your customers that, hey, this pricing is going to go up. It's also justifying the increase, right? If you just go and say, send them all an email that says, hey, price is going up, you're going to have a lot of fallout from that. So that's for sure a key. You have to be able to justify, like, this is why it's going up. Here are the 3 reasons why you're going up and why you'll be paying more. And this is why we're still better than everybody else that's, in our market area.
Yeah, along those same lines, what we've done, we typically started out from the get-go, aside from the initial launch, with larger prices. So as we go down, it's actually a benefit for those recurring, for the recurring revenue people. However, if you have a situation where the price changes and they're going to be charged more, or more than the 50% discount than they thought they were going to be, you can account for that programmatically, depending on the system that you're using. So you basically look at the license key, and then you can kind of grandfather in a specific amount rather than just a percentage. But yeah, definitely something to think about for sure.
Yeah, and I just want to add that when we did our pricing increases, and I think when a lot of them do it, we grandfathered in anybody who was at a particular price point. So if you had bought a particular price point, you were always going to pay the same rate, even if we raise rates, because at the end of the day, that makes your current customers happy. And in our case, when we're a multiple products company, we want them to be happy not just with that particular product, but because they're happy with one product, they'll go and buy another product. So.
I think there's a principle above all this, and that's just do right by the customer.
Yeah.
So like Chris said, communicate. And so it's amazing. I guarantee you this works. I've seen it work, or at least in my experience, is that if you just tell people what you're doing, that's the biggest thing. If you don't tell people what you're doing, they'll make stuff up.
Good point.
Any questions? Yes.
So I'm wondering, for someone, so I don't work for a company, I'm an independent, but I'm wondering if there's any benefit to having your first plugin be free, or if that's a bad move, or what your thoughts on that?
The question was, is there any benefit to having the first plugin or theme be free, and then either go the freemium route or have a paid version later down the road, I assume is what you're referring to. So,
Can I give a quick asterisk? So in every question, those are awesome questions, but I want you to know when I share, and I think my friends here share, every experience is unique. Your business, your plan is unique to you. And so we'll share ours, but no, it comes from the experience of our own stuff and how we do business, which may or may not be the same.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And my short answer is yes. But again, it depends on the functionality. Are you talking about a plugin or a theme?
Well, I guess I was thinking more of a plugin.
Okay, more about a plugin. So I think it depends on the functionality of the plugin, what it provides as compared to other plugins that might do similar things. And if it doesn't do a similar thing as something else out there, then that thing that it does do, again, what is the value of that? Putting a free plugin on the repo is huge. You can get a lot of usage, you can get a lot of good feedback. There are tools now and services where you can start to gather insights, opt-in only from your users, to let you know how they're using it, what sites they're using it on, and then they can give you feedback if they deactivate it. So you end up learning a lot about your features and how your people are using your tool just by having it available for free. That said, I would also put some kind of plan in place to maybe incentivize them to subscribe to your email list for maybe it's hot tips or something about the usage of the plugin, or sending them to your site. So you can, again, like Chris said, or one of you said, I'm sorry, being able to communicate to those people who are using your free one. So when you do monetize, you have a base to tell.
I just want to add something. I think one of the things you have to take into account too is how much name recognition do you have for that already, right? So if you're a brand new first plugin, no one really knows of you, they're not going to be inclined necessarily to jump in and buy a product from you. If you're Corey Miller, who has a ton of already established products and people love, and he's got a very strong following, iThemes has this big set of groupies that follow them. Do they need to set up something free for the people to buy in that he's going to produce a good product? No. But I'm not, my firm isn't known for developing plugins, so if I were to push one out there, even though I do have a good name for other things, people are going to be hesitant most likely to just buy into the fact that I'm going to create something, solid and good that they're going to want to spend money on. So for me, I would want to give it a little bit of free so that they could see it does work, it is good. So, and like they said, it's going to really vary based on the individual products, the case scenarios, and your personal experience and your branding.
So we've done all of it. We've done paid only, then we have free, and we try to launch free from just 0 to something. Then we acquired one that was free that had momentum. So the situation, I think Dick states, like the free one, Exchange is our e-commerce plugin I told you about. That was 0 to something. I think if we had that to do over again, we would pull back and just said, let's make it paid only, behind a wall at least. We thought we'd get traction on the repo, and that was just, I can go into details later on in the hallway or whatever, but it was the market we're in. I think if we had done that at a different point in time, it might have helped, but we went into a crowded market already, and we tried to use the free thing to help it, and it didn't. Momentum is awesome though, so however you can do it. I started my whole career, I'm sitting here right now because 10 years ago I gave away a bunch of free themes, and it worked for me, but it hasn't worked in other cases, you know?
Yeah, so we've done it all as well. We've acquired plugins, we've done free ones, we've done paid ones, we've done free ones that have extensions, and it really just depends on, you know, a couple things, like what are your plans for the plugin in general? If you're, for example, two of the ones I've helped launch are both e-commerce plugins. They both have an add-ons model where the base plugin is free and you pay for add-ons to them. And in that case, our benefit of launching the free plugin was that we were basically, well, not first, but really close to being first to market in certain areas. And for our case, the free, you know, plugin helped get us a lot of traction, which then, you know, once you have traction, then you have a large customer base that you can potentially sell to. You know, a lot of like our paid, if we're doing like a paid only product, you know, you think about the starter stuff ahead usually. So like if I'm planning on making something paid only, I might not launch a free version. It just really depends on, again, like Rebecca was talking about, the name recognition. So in our case, like some of our paid only stuff, we never launched a free version of, just because people know us and they tend to follow us. And for us, we didn't really have, you know, a real need to launch a free version. So yeah, it really just depends on what your case is.
The only thing I'll add, I'll complete the circle, and I was the complete opposite. I didn't do anything free with ours. I had a full-time job consulting at the time, so giving away something for free with all the work that we were putting into it, I just didn't think that was a good option, especially if people started using it and needed support, and it was free, and so it was situation-based in our case. So it's always been a paid thing, and as long as you communicate the value, you know, people understand that. So I think the moral of that is situation-based, but all the models are viable. And as you can see, there's businesses that do a mix of them, one way, some the other.
And in most cases, you can pivot to, if you find that something isn't working, change it. Do something else. Not do something other than building plugins, but market it differently.
I want to give the opportunity for anyone else to ask questions around pricing or this pricing strategy, freemium, paid. Yes?
What's a potential exit strategy for a plugin developer? Thank you.
Question is, what's a potential exit strategy for a plugin developer?
You mean like how, like you want to like an exit, you want to sell it to somebody, or what? Can you be more specific?
Yeah, I guess looking at WooCommerce, for example, what happened there, or Managed WP, for example. Is there something that you can do to sort of pave the way for that?
Well, obviously you can make your plugin really attractive. So I mean, we bought, for example, Google Analytics for WordPress from Yoast. And in our case, you know, it was attractive because they had a large number of users, and some of them were already paid. You know, in the case of like the WooCommerce acquisition, you have a product that, you know, definitely has a ton of traction, and it's, you know, very, very profitable. You know, there's not really a ton of variety of different exit strategies for plugins, at least that I'm aware of, but yeah.
I get the sense that the WordPress industry is maybe slightly different in that regard. Even looking at the acquisition of WooThemes, the multiple they got, I feel like if that wasn't WordPress, the multiple would have been a lot higher. It's a consideration. I think they have a great brand name and a lot of users, and that drives up the value for sure. But I mean, the software is open source, so you know, there's nothing proprietary about that. But I'll leave it to other people who probably know more than me.
Yeah, well, I would agree with Chris that there's not. I can't think of any other options than if you build a plugin, you create a following, then the natural course, if you want out of it, is to look for someone to acquire it, or you're just approached by someone who wants to acquire it. And as Justin said, in the WordPress space, you might not get the value that you would in other ecosystems, but there's still incentive for someone to want to acquire a plugin with a lot of users, but also a plugin that has built a good brand, and then is doing marketing around that via email lists and follow-up series and that sort of thing. So I think that's where the value kind of all comes together, right? Not just the tool.
What I'm hearing is that because it's open source, really what you're building as an asset is not the code base or the IP, but rather the mailing list and the relationships you build with the customers that are using.
100% true, yeah. Yeah, because if someone wanted to, they could just fork it and call it something else.
That's quite different than a traditional software space, because that's what you're building, right? You're building the mailing list and the relationships that are bounded on, not the code of the software per se.
Right,
I
yeah.
mean, you're building the code, but that's not the end goal.
Yes?
Yeah, so I'm in the process of, I've developed a lot of plugins, I'm in the process of releasing some potentially for sale. And one of the biggest things that I'm really trying to take into consideration is basically the documentation. So I don't know if any of you guys can share some of the tips in terms of like maybe, you know, do videos or do some maybe formats or some thought process, because I know it's really important that if someone looks or finds one of my plugins that it should be very clear on how to use it, why we use it. You know, I find that that's really, really important, and outside of just developing, and I wanted some thoughts maybe from your team.
Yeah, so if you're going to sell a plugin, you have to have documentation, instruction on how to use it. So we'll ask the panel.
I can speak to it from a theme perspective. When we first launched the theme store, I was getting the most ridiculous questions over and over again, and I wanted to lose my mind. I mean, literally, I was going crazy answering these questions, but the issue wasn't them, the issue was me. I wasn't giving them good documentation and creating a good onboarding process for them. So I bought a plugin for like follow-up emails for WooCommerce or something, and so as soon as a theme is bought, they're on their path, right? I'm giving them the path I want them to take. I do follow-ups 3 days later. I do another follow-up 30 days later with additional information as they go through the process. I don't have those questions anymore because I put them all in that onboarding process, and it took all of that headache away. So for me, that was invaluable.
Yeah, that's a really good point, is do it during the, or just after the, well, I guess the onboarding process. But in terms of my own experience with documentation, it's something that you have to concentrate on before you release. As you're talking with your team or yourself, if you're the only one doing it, the features that you build and the benefits that you think of or why someone would want to use it, start writing those down right away. And it's an organic and ongoing process. So as Rebecca said, she started to get questions. Every time we get a question that we see more than once, it goes into our documentation site immediately. Like that's a rule we have on our team, just so it's there. So even if we have to search for it ourselves to remember the answer and remember how we answered it previously, it's there. And one more thing, videos we haven't found do very well for us in terms of documentation, just because of the nature of people's attention span. But we do use videos on YouTube a lot to drive traffic to our site. And those are documentation type videos and tutorial type videos.
So a couple things I would add to this is when I was much younger as a developer, one of the better lessons you learn really quickly is that originally you start looking at documentation as like something that's going to take a ton of time and you'll never get it back and users are never going to read your docs, but I can assure you that writing documentation is an investment basically in your future that will pay dividends. Because if you can write a doc that somebody reads that's going to take away 10% of your future support tickets, when your plugin becomes much larger or your theme becomes much larger, this is going to save you so much time. Another thing I would add is that a lot of developers fail to take into account that a lot of the users that they have are not as tech savvy, they're not as WordPress savvy. So like for example, our most viewed document on almost all of our products is how to install a WordPress plugin, because people will literally see a zip and they will have no idea what to do with it. They'll download it in Apple Safari, then it'll unzip, and then they're even more confused. Love that feature.
Where's the executable?
Right. So for example, that's one of the docs that we always make a video for, because when you go to tell people how to install a plugin, particularly if it's a paid product where you have to give them a zip file, you need to. A lot of users want to be able to actually see exactly what buttons they're supposed to be pushing and where they're supposed to be going in their dashboard to go find them. And then, like to echo what Adam was talking about earlier, which is, a lot of your questions you'll get over and over and over again in support. And the more times that you get them, the more you should realize that there's a problem here. And it's not just from a you need to document standpoint, but if you get the same question over and over again, I would also point out this is something you might want to look into, how you can solve this in your plugin or your theme, so they never have this problem to begin with. Because down the road, it'll just save you a lot of time.
Yeah, those are really good points. And one other thing I wanted to add as you were talking, Chris, I thought about it was put in a documentation system or a support system where the user is forced to search for the documentation first. A good example of that is Easy Digital Downloads. I'm sure you guys do it as well. We do it. We use HelpScout. We use their knowledge base to put all our articles in, and it comes built in with a search box first before you get the contact form. We find that has reduced our need to answer tickets for items that we already had documentation on.
Yeah, I think it's a good segue, actually. A follow-up is, what tools do you all use for support, and maybe why you use that? So I'll kick it off. We use both HelpScout and bbPress for forums. We have both in place, really, since the beginning. And actually, we had just the HelpScout first, and then people were asking for forums, so we put it in place. And we've had to build out some custom plugins to work with bbPress to make it easier to manage tickets and support coming in from there. It can be a little bit more challenging. You have less insights in some ways to resolution times and whatnot. But we found that in our context and our users, they like to bounce ideas off other people, share resolutions and kind of cool ways they've been using our plugin or whatever. So we see both channels being used, but I'm going to open it up to these guys here to share what they use and why.
So our products, we've used both. We've used forums, we've used ticketing, we've used both forms of ticketing. I would say as a general case, I like ticketing better, and I'll use the example of Easy Digital Downloads for this. Originally, we were doing forums only, and forums are great in the sense that they allow other users to help and chime in. There's a lot of downsides to them that you don't really see when you start using them. Like 2 years down the road, when your support topic from 2 years ago is now ranking #1 in Google and it's completely outdated, and so people are doing like solutions that do not work anymore. You don't think about this, but I can tell you this is like the #1 reason we got rid of bbPress. Another thing is with like something like bbPress, where it's not really designed to be a support tool first, you have to build a lot of that functionality in. This takes time, and also you have to spend a lot of time in maintaining that. So when like ED was using it, we were spending a ton of our time every week doing nothing but literally writing fixes for like bbPress issues or add-ons and stuff like that. An advantage of having a direct ticketing like solution, sort of like a HelpScout or a solution like that, is that it's really easy also to manage when you have multiple support agents. You can do things like ticket assigning, and it's just easier to follow through and get reports on. So from our perspective, it's generally easier to do a direct ticketing. Forums are basically useful in like exactly one case, at least that I can think of right now, which is where you have like a big community that loves to help each other. But yeah, for the most part, you got to think about down the line, how is your impact of ticketing going to affect your company and your support load in the future.
We started with forum software as far as your question goes regarding support. We started with forums just like Chris was saying, and now we use Zendesk primarily for ticketing. And it's gone really well and allows Matt, my COO, who manages all that, to see directly if customers are getting support, who's doing a good job of that, and it's kind of a cool little metric you can tie back to people.
Hey, we like it better, Corey. Since you moved us in there.
Well, thank
little
Matt.
positive feedback.
Thank Matt. He had to pry the forums away from me because I was like, I love the community aspect of the forums, but you're so right.
Yeah.
Well done, Matt.
We've had similar experience to what both Chris and Corey just talked about. We started with HelpScout, and it was great, and we're a very small team. We were 3 people at the time, and we were finding it difficult to follow up on things. So me being a marketing guy, I thought, well, if we had forums, then we get the added benefit of getting indexed by Google, and maybe we'll get some more traffic that way. But as Chris has mentioned, there's some things that could go wrong, like a feature that has been changed that you're ranking now #1 for. But we also found that, just like Chris said, that the forum process was unmanageable because you had to do so much custom stuff. So we made this big announcement that we were moving to forums and listed all these benefits, and then Syed Belki, the guy behind Opt-in Monster and Insights and a bunch of other stuff that you probably know about, he messaged me and he said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, this is why." And he goes, "Oh, okay, it's an interesting move because everybody else is moving to ticketing." And I was like, "Okay." 2 years later, I finally smarted up and discovered that that wasn't working for us. So that's why we went back to
Welcome to
ticketing
the light,
system.
sir.
Yes, I've seen the light.
I would add also, if you release a plugin or a theme on .org, you're going to have to use a ticketing solution because you have the built-in WordPress support. And I would also recommend a lot of companies will release their free version there, and they'll never go and reply to all the support tickets. We used to do something like that in some of our products, and now we answer all of them. And the reason for this is a lot of users will start on your free version because it's free. Why not? But then they look at things like, okay, are all these support tickets getting answered? Because if they're not, do I really want to go buy their pro version? Because how do I know that they're really going to support me on their pro ticketing software? Right? So you get a lot of that. One of the newer things that I just wanted to share really quickly, because I don't think a lot of people are aware of it yet, is when the forums recently changed to upgrade to BBPress 2.0. One of the things it does now is when you look at the support page, it no longer ranks, it no longer sorts the tickets that you get by last modified. So let's say that I open a ticket on one of Corey's products 2 weeks ago, and then Corey immediately responds, and then I wait 2 weeks because I'm a lazy person, and then I reply to it. In order for Corey to see that response, he has to page back a few pages in order to see it, and a lot of people don't realize that change has occurred because it used to just sort by like when the last person responded. So one of the things you need to start doing on .org, and also if you have a software that works the same way for ticketing, is look at that, because otherwise you're going to start getting these reviews that are really weird if you've used .org for a while that say things like, "You guys never responded to my support thing," or whatever, and as the plugin author, you'll log in and everything will say resolved. What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, that's what's happening. So keep that in mind.
Good to know. Yeah, we have a question.
I'm actually kind of surprised that using forums doesn't help reduce the amount of tickets that you have to respond to. I'm someone that really likes to self-service and fix my own problem if I can find the answer. Do you find that you have more to respond to when you only use ticketing, or less?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, part of the reason of the logical fallacy of that is there are some users who are awesome, and they will go through your ticketing software and they'll respond to like 20 of them. The downside of that is most users don't. I mean, the same way that most users don't necessarily like to search through docs early, unless you like sort them through that path. They don't necessarily want to help out each other. Because the way you have to look at it from a product owner's perspective is your customers are your customers. They're not, extensions of your support agents. If they are, that's amazing, and you should totally encourage that. But, that's not what their job is, and that's not generally what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's a good point, and thank you for being one of the people who search first. And probably all of us in this room have a tendency to do that, right? Because we're all do-it-yourselfers, we're all WordPressers. But another issue with the forums that I've seen is that someone will have a question, you will answer it, and then the thread will go on and on and on and on and on with different questions that end up completely unrelated to each other. So
Right.
then you're opening up this never-ending stream of consciousness.
Adam said this earlier too, so the way most of those ticketing systems are set up is, he said put your help desk first. They go through the help desk
Yeah.
or the documentation first. And so I'm the same way though.
Anecdotal story about one of the sponsors, GoDaddy Pro. They have a new community forum that launched a few months ago. I'm sort of part of that, and what's happened is a lot of people that respond and are the helpers are now getting direct messages from users and effectively are becoming the extended support staff. It's a fairly unfortunate thing.
I was going to kind of say a counter to Chris's the forum stuff is I don't believe users should be your support staff at all. However, when we did have forums, and everyone remembers this, when we did have forums, it was neat because there's this, what's it called, Psychic Income, I think it's called. Dale found, I can't remember the book, I'll figure it out. Dale found this one user was helping people in the community, and he wasn't getting paid. His income was his little karma rating. That was something special about the forums I loved, by the way. And I just want to give a caveat. We're not going back to forums, however, that kind of stuff was awesome. And we also hired support people that came first as customers and helped others and got jobs, just like you're saying. There's this communal effect. And I think that's part of being in the WordPress stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. We did, we've probably, when EDD, Easy to Downloads rather, was using a forum, 3 or 4 of our support agents were hired based on the fact that they were helping other customers. So there's definitely a benefit in that regard.
Okay. We covered documentation and support tools, but we'll move on to just a little bit of a switch since we're talking about building and selling WordPress products. Let's talk about challenges. What are maybe 1 or 2, in your opinion, what are some of the challenges, 1 or 2 challenges of selling a WordPress specific product?
Okay. I think the biggest challenge that I've had is the perception that WordPress is free, so should everything else be. And that is, there's people that will spend money on premium themes and premium plugins and not bat an eye at it, but then there's a large portion of the community that believes you should be giving all of this away. And they come at you with that, and just kind of trying to emotionally manage that and keep yourself level and know that you do have to sell it, you do need to be able to support it. This is a business, I give back by coming here and giving my time and traveling, but I can't give products away. And that's always been a struggle for me, and that's my biggest challenge that I've had.
And until those people move out of your parents' basement, start paying bills, the lights are on because there's a financial system. The challenge that we always have is scaling support. If a product is very successful, how do you scale support? Particularly if they're technical products like Easy Digital Downloads. I mean, it's hard. I bet Pippin has a hard time scaling, because you got to really know, and that's probably a benefit back to the forum is you get some of those people cultivated into the community that are helping each other. So I would say support, and I would +1 Rebecca's the free thing.
Yeah, by far number 1 for us was support. Particularly, it also depends on the type of product, right? So a lot of the products that we do are more technically based, so e-commerce, we get analytics ones, so the users have a lot more technical questions, and it's difficult to find people to do those roles. It's difficult to keep up, because your basic WordPress user is going to generally have more questions because it's not something that they're going to be immediately familiar with. If you pluck a person off the street and you ask them how to use Google Analytics, they're going to have no idea what you're talking about. Or what's this analytics thing you're talking about? But yeah, definitely support first, and that's something that you have to plan for in advance. So, when we're building a product and we're building that version 1, it's something that we take a huge amount of time into looking. And so one of the strategies that we employ quite a bit is the person who does the docs for the release is a person who's never used the plugin, even when it was being developed. So that way when they're making the videos and they're trying to show how to get to something and it's unintuitive, we know about it right away.
Yeah, and I just wanted to follow up with basically what everybody said. Perception is huge. If it's WordPress, it should be free, and that's absolutely not true, because we are trying to build real businesses. And I find that one of the methods that we've used successfully is to communicate why we charge for, X plugin or X feature via our blog, via our email list, and just basically be as transparent as we can and say, listen, we're raising the price on this, or we've released this product and we've decided it's going to be a premium product because of XYZ, and giving some insight into how much work it really takes a developer, a team of people to produce and release something that other people can use without it breaking their site, first and foremost. And +1 for support, it's pretty clear, support's hard. And another thing is that we have used just recently, what Chris has alluded to, is getting someone to test your plugin that has nothing to do with it while it's being developed. And part of what we've done is used user testing to get people who aren't really even familiar with WordPress itself and give them a specific set of directions and say, install this plugin and now make it do this. And then they record themselves talking, and it's a screencast of them trying to figure things out. And you'll undoubtedly discover things that you thought were very clear. Especially, this is how my partner and I go back and forth. He's a hardcore programmer. I'm the user guy. I'm the end user. And so he will say something, hey, that's got this new feature, and then I will go, how do we use that? How do I